I do, not as much now. I think COVID's made me very lazy because I've become very hooked on Netflix. So yeah, so I'm getting more and more distracted by alternate media, but I'm forcing myself to go back to reading. And I just bought this book, which was in the Manorama lately and in the Hindu. This novel that has been written on Nitya Rama, the lady from the Kurupat family in Thrissur, Destiny's Child. So I just got it on Amazon. It's arrived in the mail yesterday. So that's what I'm going to be reading this weekend. Yeah, I like to do. I love ethno history. So
wow, good, nice.
Good. How are we doing, Kripa?
Yeah,
we've got 54.
We have 62 participants, so I think we can start.
Super. I'm feeling very privileged, so thank you. Get started, Kripa.
Of course. So I'll start. A warm good evening, one and all. I cordially welcome all of you to this webinar on the topic How to Plan for a Startup, Legal and Ethical Steps, organized by the English Department and Center for Research and the Chemistry Department and Center for Research in association with the Institution Innovation Council of our college. In this golden age of entrepreneurial development, it is beyond doubt that in the vibrant and creative student body of St. Teresa's College, there will be many students with ideas to begin a startup of their own. It is imperative that those students get a clear-cut idea of how to take the initial steps for a startup and the ethical and legal aspects one should look into. It is with this thought in mind that we have organized this webinar for you. So without further delay, let us get into the formal part of today's event. Every new venture demands invoking the blessings of the Almighty. I invite Anna Nia from 2nd DC Chemistry for the prayer.
As we gather in this place today, Holy Spirit, come and have your way. Have your way. As we lay aside our own desires, sweep across our hearts with holy fire. Have your way. This is your house, your home. We welcome you, Lord, we welcome you. This is your house, your home. We welcome you today. We welcome you today. We welcome you today.
Thank you, Anna. I would like to invite Dr. Nisha TP, the IIC Faculty Coordinator for the Chemistry Department, to welcome the gathering.
Thank you, Kripa. Good evening, one and all. It gives me immense warmth and great pleasure to grace all of your presence in the interest of the entire committee. I felt tremendous contentment in welcoming all of you to this webinar on how to plan for startup and legal and ethical steps, organized jointly by the Department of Chemistry and Center for Research and the Department of English and Center for Research in association with Theresian Institution and Innovation Council, IIC, and Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Cell, IEDC. IIC, as you know, is an initiative of Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India, established to systematically foster the culture of innovation among all higher education institutions. And the primary mandate of IIC is to encourage, inspire, and nurture young students by supporting them to work with new ideas and transform them into prototypes while they are in formative years. While IEDC is an initiative of Kerala Startup Mission under Startup Bootcamp Scheme of Government of Kerala, and the mission of the IEDCs is to develop institutional mechanism to create entrepreneur culture in academic institutions and to foster growth of innovation and entrepreneurship among the faculties and students. So Theresian IIC and IEDC has been constantly working on imparting these visions to the young minds and nurture them to hold up their own phases of professional life. And with the same intention, this webinar is arranged to impart basic ideas on startup, their ethical and legal context, which can motivate and actually give hope to students in selecting their career as an innovator. And coming back to the duty vested upon me, first of all, I welcome, even in their absence, Reverend Dr. Sister Vinita, CSST Manager, Reverend Sister Emily, CSST Director, and Dr. Lizzie Matthew, Principal, St. Teresa's College, to this event. And with great pleasure and with great pride, on behalf of Department of English and Department of Chemistry and the entire Theresian family, I am honored to welcome our speaker, Neha Nair, independent consultant and former CEO of South Asia Network of Microfinance Initiatives and INAFI International. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I now welcome the heads of both departments, Dr. Jaya T. Worki, Department of Chemistry, and Dr. Preeti Kumar, Department of English, to this event, who have given us their great support, suggestions, and guidance as and when required. I welcome all the faculty members of both the departments and other departments of the college. Last but not the least, I welcome all the students who have shown keen interest to join this webinar. And once again, I welcome each and every one of you to this webinar. I conclude with a great hope that you will find this event fruitful in one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha ma'am. Before getting to today's talk, it is important that all of you have an idea of who the speaker is. I invite Mrs. Niveda Sebastian, the IIC Faculty Coordinator for the English Department, to introduce today's speaker.
A pleasant evening to all. I consider it a great honor to introduce the exemplary personage and our resource person of the event, Neha Nair. Neha ma'am is an independent consultant with a vast experience of over 3 decades in the arenas of policy and advocacy, human resource development, institutional development services, strategic planning, product design, and social performance management in over 30 countries worldwide. Ma'am has provided both advisory and consulting services to a range of institutions, including government agencies, bilateral and multilateral donors. And she is currently serving on the BOD of ECLOF International and provides advisory support to network strengthening initiatives of SEEP and ADA. She has been a supporter of the BWTP program since establishment. Prior to consulting, Neha ma'am has served as CEO of the South Asia Network of Microfinance Initiatives and INAFI International, and was the Asia Regional Coordinator and Acting Policy and Advocacy Coordinator for WWB. Ma'am holds an MA from the University of Pennsylvania in Regional Studies with a focus on gender and development, and a BA in Social and Cultural Anthropology from the University of Virginia. I can proudly say that she's based in Cochin. Ma'am, we consider it a great blessing and privilege to listen to your words today, and thank you so much for gifting us your time. Thank you all, and happy learning. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Niveda ma'am. With that, we have reached the most awaited part of today's webinar. I invite Neha Nair, a highly successful independent consultant, to talk to us about planning for a startup and more on entrepreneurship. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Kripa, and thank you so much, Niveda, for that beautiful and warm introduction. When I hear this, I'm just always sort of blushing because there's so many more people in the world that have done amazing things, and the students in front of me, I'm sure each and every one of them is going to be an awesome inspirer, innovator, influencer in the years to come. I am also thankful to St. Teresa's because I am not a St. Teresan myself. My mother was a St. Teresan, but I have been working with St. Teresa's on and off with the auspices of the Rotary Club. Rotary Club of Milan has a Rotary Club there. I've had the good fortune to visit St. Teresa's several times on the disaster management plan, as well as with various departments. And I know how committed the senior management and the instructors and the students are to changing the way we look at education and the way we look at preparedness of youth for the new generation and the new world. The pandemic, of course, has brought another spin onto what is essential in terms of the preparatory tools that we are handing over to the youth of today. I am so very happy to hear from Nisha about what exactly St. Teresa's aims to achieve with this initiative on promoting entrepreneurship. You might well ask why chemistry students or why English literature students or even myself. I come from a BA in anthropology with minors in history, ethnohistory, architectural history, and English literature. So why am I talking about entrepreneurship and ethical and legal steps to startups? Actually, in many ways, I want to start with the introduction that Niveda did. So those two organizations in which I played the role of CEO, both were startups. Both were innovations, because at that point in time, about 20 years ago, when we started those organizations, such organizations did not exist. Trainings were done in a classroom. Trainings were done with, a lot, not even PowerPoints actually in those days. It used to be long training manuals, lot of paper, lot of lecture. But the way we started up both INAFI and SANFI was focusing on experiential learning. Experiential learning really brought practical knowledge and practical tools to the students, push the students or the learners. I actually don't even want to call them students, because each of us, including the instructors, was a student and was learning. So we would all go out into the field. So one example I want to throw out is when we were trying to teach children on how to, or students or learners, on how to prepare for whether or not we were ready to set up a credit program for entrepreneurs. We actually sent the students in the class out to the marketplace, and they actually had to do market research, market testing, risk analysis, and demand analysis, and then come back and design one product by group. So one group would develop a savings product, another group would develop an investment product, a third group would develop a credit product for business, and a fourth group would come back with a social product for either a housing loan, a toilet loan, or an education loan, which could then be offered by a credit provider or a financial service provider in the marketplace, based on the market research that they had done with a 4-hour study in the marketplace. So that is what I mean by experiential learning. Not just sitting in a classroom and going through reams of paper and listening to lectures. So even today, even though we are constrained by online, let's see how interactive and how experiential we can make it. My first slide, Kripa, will try to give you, my first slide is essentially talking about the session overview. So I'll try to go through a few definitions. We'd look at some question and answers. So I encourage all of you to start typing in your chat box. Doesn't have to be a question. You can say I agree or I violently disagree, vehemently disagree with what the speaker is saying. I love the disagreements because that helps me learn. Okay, and that engages in a discussion. So then lastly, we will go through some more Q&As if people have clarifications. So my first slide really,
ma'am, is this
content slide. Yeah. Kripa, go down to the third slide, which says defining entrepreneurship. Yeah, next one. That's it. So when you think about entrepreneurship, a lot of people think it's very difficult and a lot of people think it's very easy. Now, the question is, no matter whether you are an employed person, a self-employed person, or working in a group business where you have partners, entrepreneurship requires a lot of hard work. But it's very promising because it allows you a lot of freedom, a lot of independence in decision making, and there's a huge amount of satisfaction which can't be compared by being, an employee in an organization. Of course, there are certain benefits when you're an employee because your wage comes very, very correctly in the first week of every month. You know exactly how much you're going to earn, and you know that you're going to get perks, bonuses, and benefits. But as an entrepreneur, you don't have those advantages. But you can create those opportunities and advantages by making your business successful. So the first question I want to ask is, next slide, is everybody cut out to be an entrepreneur? We don't know that. We think we are cut out. We think we are not cut out. We are afraid to try, which is why startups are really, really amazing way. Now, you don't have to get very, very worried about being a startup. I'm sure many of you have sold something in your childhood. You know, in movies, we see, especially American movies, Hollywood movies, you see a bunch of kids, you know, washing cars. Yeah. Or you see a bunch of kids standing with a lemonade stand. You know, there's two kids, there's a jar full of coins, and then there's another kid that's serving lemonade into little glasses and handing it out. This is a startup. And it can be by 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds. My brother actually with a bunch of his buddies started up a summer business in the US. They used to mow lawns. So they borrowed my mother's lawnmower. Of course, my mother had no idea what was happening. So they borrowed a lawnmower and the 4 boys would go out and they would mow lawns all down our street. And they would charge depending upon the size of the lawn. It's amazing. They'd figured out how much to charge for, you know, a small lawn, a medium lawn, a large lawn. And if they couldn't get beyond the large because you needed a bigger machine, they actually got into subcontracting a bigger machine belonging to somebody's brother. So imagine how sharp these 10-year-old boys are. And this is a startup. It's a service, but it is a startup service providing. A lemonade stand is also a service. You are providing food and beverage service. Some of you may have baked cookies and sold. Well, that's a food service. Some of you may have babysat for your relatives or friends, and you may have got pocket money for it. That's a service. Babysitting is a service. So most of us at some point in our lives have already experienced a startup. So consider yourself having taken that first risk and that first initiative. So clap, clap, okay? But when you get into a serious startup and you decide that this is going to be your career option, you have to start looking at the different aspects of it. I'm going to jump and dive right into the biggest one, risk. So if we can just get to the slide on risks of entrepreneurship. What do I mean by risks? See, there's a risk in everything. If I go skiing, I can break my leg. If I drive a car, I could have an accident or somebody else could come and bash me and spoil my car, or worse, you know, it could be a very, very serious accident. I could, be an engineer or an architect and go for a site visit to the top of a building. I could fall down. There are all kinds of risks. So naturally, even in entrepreneurship, there are going to be risks. So the risk of failure is quite real and it can be very high depending upon how large your business is and how big your failure is or mistakes. So let's go further. If you go behind any success story, whether it is an Ambani or whether it is a Kiran Mazumdar or whether it is a Vijay Mallya, you will find that behind every success story, there are some stories of failure, of struggle, and that is where case analysis comes in. So when you look at a Bill Gates or even Elon Musk, who's now in the news because he's just bought Twitter for a huge sum of money, right? All these people, you can't just get to the end of the story. So if it's a series, don't go to season 3. Please start with season 1. Because there is always a struggle and there's always experiential learning because it's the pitfalls and the challenges that they have faced right at the onset that will guide them through the learning process. And the learning is continuous because the environment changes, the economy changes, the global scenario changes, wars come, fuel prices go up, coffee prices go down. A lot of things happen and all of these have implications on the business that you're running. So these are all the factors that will affect whether your business is very high risk, medium risk, or low risk. But there is no such thing as no risk. Every business will have a risk. Okay. Now, when it comes to startups, there's a higher degree of risk. Why do you think that is? Can anyone venture a guess? Why do you think startups have a higher degree of risk? Okay. It's because, see, if I don't know how to make pizza, okay, I don't know how to make pizza, and I decide to set up a pizza business, will I succeed or will I fail? If I start the business without learning how to make pizza and getting an expert pizza maker, It's not enough for me to learn how to make pizza. My chef has to be an expert pizza maker before I can even assume that I'll be a success. Say I learn how to make pizza, I may actually make some money, but I may not be able to survive competition because my pizza may not be good enough as many others, so the competition might put me out of business. I may succeed for a while, but I may not be able to sustain my business. So it's not enough just to start up. One has to start up with a bang, do well in the initial period, but then continue to do well or better than your goal. So you have to beat yourself, your own excellence. You have to go past your own excellence in order to be able to sustain your competitiveness in the market, and others will also be innovating. So say, for instance, you make a pizza and it has 4 cheeses. Somebody else will come along and say, well, I'll do it with 5 cheeses, or I'll put sun-dried tomatoes on it. So everybody is going to be trying to compete in the business. So in order to really sustain, you have to be constantly ahead of the market. You have to be constantly educating and studying your market and your competition to stay ahead of the game. And according to studies, we don't have to look at the statistics very closely since we're not business students. Most research says that startups generally tend to fail. And the failure rate is high after the first 5 years. So even if they succeed the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, by the 5th year, they're not able to go and they wind up. And very, very few survive after 10 years. So if you know a business that is surviving after 10 years, you know that they have really, really cornered the market and done a good job. And those are the businesses that you want to study when you study startups. Next slide. So when you look at entrepreneurship, now we are all students right now. Most of us actually are not thinking about becoming a business person. We are thinking about being a paid salaried professional. Very few of us actually even think of becoming entrepreneurs because we find safety in getting a monthly wage or a monthly salary. And that salary and wage allows us certain perks. So if you buy a car or you buy a house, they look at your salary. When you're an entrepreneur, they may not be willing to give you a loan to buy a home loan or a car. Why? Because you have to show a lot more paperwork and you have to show that you are very, very liquid, that you have a lot of cash flow in your business. So it becomes very difficult. So when you're interested in going out there and succeeding in the world, sometimes being a salaried professional seems to be the way to go. But a lot of people, they always have this dream that I want to have my own business. I want to be my own boss. And that passion, keeps in your heart. So I was also a salaried professional. For the first, I would say 15 years of my life, I worked for various UN related agencies for a monthly salary. But somehow I kind of always wanted to set out on my own and set up my own consultancy. And that is why I moved towards independent consulting. But this is another important point. Why did I spend the first 10 to 15 years of my life studying? I was, as an employee, studying my bosses of those days, my seniors of those days. I learned how they did their work, how they developed themselves. I studied them. I studied my clients. I studied all the systems in the organization so that when I set out and started my own organization, I was ready with all the blueprints. So I knew from A to Z what it took. Now, what does it take? So you have to be a leader because you're the boss. Boss means you have to lead. And learning to be a leader is not that easy because, well, some people just don't like to follow. So your staff may not listen to you. Your clients may not always be on the same wavelength. It's really challenging. So being a business leader can be very, very challenging. So you have to develop leadership skills. You have to be willing to take risk. We talked a little bit about risk earlier. Then offering a product or service. See, you can't just jump in the market and say, I'm going to do this or that. Going back to the lemonade stand. Why is it that people always use this lemonade stand as an example? You see, because in the summertime, it's very hot and people are always thirsty. And a nice glass of lemon juice or lime juice, it hits the right spot. So somebody selling lemonade on the street on a hot summer's day, you just can't lose. But it has to be hygienic. It has to be served in a clean manner. and it has to be the right cost, the right price. So you provide all of those things, your lemonade stand will do very well. Now, if you set up your stand along with another 10 other lemonade stands, perhaps you don't do well. So location, location, location. You want to put your lemonade stand at the right point. So when you design your product or your service, you have to be very, very smart and sharp about what you're selling, how you're going to sell it, how it will be packaged, how it will be priced, who else is selling that product in the market. How do you make sure that your customer will pick yours over, 10 others in the market? And why will yours be the only product they'll buy tomorrow, day after, and the days to come? Not just the first day, but all the days after. So that is really what I mean by product research, product design, and this can apply to both a product as well as a service. And again, that word sustainable. Sustainable is you're not just going to succeed for one day. You want to be in the market for as long as you choose to be in the market. So some entrepreneurs, what they do is, like IT sector, you see this a lot. A lot of people in the IT sector, you will see a lot of young Indians have developed some beautiful apps. They develop beautiful software. And then after 5 or 6 years, they make a lot of money. They sell. They sell when the price is right, and they sell it to another company for a huge amount of money. Why do you think they do that? Because they know that they are on to another game. They are finished with this. They want to sell out while the going is good, and then they will take this money and they will either retire to the Bahamas or to Goa or wherever, or they will start a whole new business and use the money that they made selling the original business as the investment for the new business. So the cycle begins again. So the proceeds from the sale of the original business becomes the capital for the investment for the next business and for the next cycle of innovation, right? So what I'm trying to say is that businesses can last many, many years, hundreds of years, or businesses can run for a particular life cycle, and then they can spin off into a new product, or they can be taken up by another company or become part of another company's business, and the original company moves on and starts doing new innovative things. This is particularly true in innovative areas where change is very frequent, particularly in the areas of engineering, technology, and even pharmaceutical and health sciences. Very, very common. Restaurants and food also, I would say, are very innovative because food sciences are a science. So when people get familiar with new ingredients and there's new technology on how to, for instance, in the old days, I don't know how many of you remember this, we used to actually make cakes in a pressure cooker. Today you use ovens, and then we used microwave ovens. Today you have little powders and you can actually just mix something in a mug, pour some hot water, stick it in the microwave, and voila, you have a cake in less than 5 minutes. So you see how technology has changed, even food. You can also look at some of, I don't know how many of you watch MasterChef. So if you look at the way they make different kinds of desserts, different kinds of things, they have blow torches. So sometimes I think that the MasterChef kitchen looks like engineering school, where they're actually, or a workshop, where they are, making engineering products, where they're actually making food. And they're using blow torches, to burn meringues or to, toast things. It's just amazing. So this is all part of business and technology. And why do you bring in all this innovation, business and technology into business? To stay ahead of the game, all right? So an entrepreneur has to constantly stay ahead of the game. And now let's look at some of the challenges. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to list, and it's an exhaustive list. I don't think these are the only 10 challenges, but I just wanted to summarize it. So when you start a business, first and foremost, you have to understand, if you're just making a business like a lemonade stand, there's no bureaucracy. But can we say that? What if you set up your lemonade stand on somebody else's lawn? That person could come and say, get off my lawn. You're not permitted to set up the lemonade stand on my property. Get off my property. So you have to get permission from the person before you can set up your lemonade stand. If it is your own property, okay, no problem. Okay. Now, what if you set up on somebody else's property and that person is not there? but his watchman is there. And that watchman says, you have to give me 100 rupees in order to do this. You know, I want a little bit of money. So there's corruption, right? Even for a lemonade stand, there could be corruption. Labor. Well, you and your friend, if you've got a buddy or your sister or brother, that's labor. And if mummy is mixing the lemonade for you, she's labor as well. And you may have to pay her in kisses or she may take it in money. That depends on who your mummy is, right? Then this peer pressure. Arey yaar, you are going to fail. I don't think you can do a good lemonade business. There's so many people selling lemonade. I can make lemonade at home. Why will I come and buy your lemonade? Stop doing these things. Doesn't work. So there'll be 100 people to discourage you. That is where peer pressure comes into it. Very few people will say, go ahead, do, succeed. Slap your back and say, go forward, I'll support you. Most people tend to pull you back saying, Arey, it's very risky. You'll spend all this money and you lose money. Is it worth it? Isn't it better to go and see a film, man? It's holiday season. Let's go enjoy our summer holidays. Why do all this business tamasha? Right? Then you have grey market and counterfeit goods. Now, you were good enough to go and buy actual limes and lemons, squeeze them and make your juice. But what if we go off and buy some powdered lemonade? And that lemonade is not made of good products. It could be counterfeit goods. Then you have to look at the financial situation. How do you buy the lemons? How do you put up your stand? How are you going to buy the glasses in which you're going to serve your lemonade? That requires some initial startup capital, right? So you need financing. Then you need social capital. Somebody has to actually taste your lemonade, say that, you know, this is good. Add a little bit of sugar or maybe a little bit of a pinch of salt. Maybe you can add a little bit of mint into it to give it a little extra luxurious taste. So you need to bring in the social capital elements into it and the mentoring and the inspiration that comes with social capital. Then, say for instance, your lemonade stand is a very, very good success. What do? You want to expand. So you don't want to do it only on this street. You want to do it on the neighboring street. You may need to bring in staff. You may need to bring in help. So that's recruitment. And you have to make sure that the recruitment is of good people, people who have clean fingernails, who are not going to use dirty glasses, who will actually rinse the glasses nicely, who will not litter, who will not cheat you and pocket the money that they earn. So recruitment, HR, very, very critical. Unrealistic expectations. I sold 40 glasses of lemonade today. I can easily sell 400 tomorrow. Do you think that's realistic or unrealistic? Going from 40 to 80 itself is a huge calculation because it's a 100% increase. But going from 40 to 400 is a bit unrealistic. So you have to set realistic expectations and targets. Partnership in decision making. Now you started it with your sister or your friend. What if you both decide on the same things? That's good. But what if you begin to fight about how things are done? You have to learn the art of conversation, negotiation, and conflict resolution. These are all very important things. Negotiating, conflict resolution. And then, of course, as I said, the competition that comes. So which means that you have to really come up with very smart marketing strategies. That is that peppermint that I said, you know, add the peppermint or add a little bit of flavor to make it different from other people's lemonade. Next slide, please. Now we are going to get into the business of ethics. Basically, you have to look at a business on 3 levels. When you're starting a business, first of all, you have to look at yourself and say, how ethical am I? What does ethics mean for me? What is truth, fairness, justice, propriety, appropriateness mean to me? What are my ethics? What am I comfortable with? What's the level beyond which I will not cross? What's my Rubicon? Where will I come? I mean, after this, I cannot do. Then it is corruption. Then it is sin. Or there it is more immoral. You can call it any number of things. So you have to have a screen in terms of how you assess your personal ethics. Then professionally, a lot of people will say, you see, personally, you can say a lot of things. But when you get into the marketplace, you have to do dhanda. You have to do business. So you have to compromise. A lot of people will say that. But see, while I'm okay with compromises, there again will be a limit to which I will go, beyond which I cannot go. And when it gets to professional or corporate level, you have to understand it's not your idea of right and wrong. That's where legal comes in. because there are usually laws that define the limits. You have to be very, very clear on the law, because you may think it is right, but the law may think otherwise. And if you cross the law, you could be opening yourself up to litigation, to punishment, to penalties, and worst case scenario, you could be even going to jail, because some of the laws are pertaining to such high punishments as well. Next slide. So when you talk about an ethical startup, which must also be in compliance with the legal aspects of it, you have to first and foremost establish the core value of a business. And usually the core value of a business is the founder's own ethics. So a business as a startup actually is very closely entwined with the founder. And so a lot of businesses that you really, really love, I don't know, I mean, look at the businesses that you know of, and you'll see why you like them, because there's something about the founder and the product line that's really something that emotes to you. So one of the, I think you might be using those products, Body Shop. Are you familiar with Body Shop? Body Shop is a cosmetics product. Yeah. So the founder of Body Shop, she died almost a decade and a half ago, but we met her when I was your age in New York. She was a speaker at one of the conferences. And I just loved Anita, because the way she talked about Body Shop, the way she talked about India, you know, and she talked about the seeds and the plants and the animals that produced the raw materials for her products, for her body creams, for her shampoos, for her lotion. It's like she loved what she did. She respected nature. She respected human beings. And she wanted to create a product line that really, really looked after people and would always be remembered for the quality, the total quality. And she died more than 20 years ago. And imagine Body Shop still lives. It's the same logo, even though they've done a lot of brand innovation and brand revision. The ethos of Body Shop still survives. And some of the original product lines and fragrances still survive. Now that's success, because the founder's ethos, the founder's identity is still so firmly embedded in that product well after she's gone, well after she's died. And to me, that's really beautiful. Another product and company, you know, Fab India. How many of you know Fab India? I don't think there's anyone who does not know who's Fab India. Fab India's founder is another wonderful human being, William Bissell. William Bissell is the current owner and manager. William's father and mother, John Bissell, he was an Englishman, and his wife was an Indian, a Punjabi, Bimla Bissell. They started Fab India many years ago in New Delhi. And if I look at Fab India today, it's evolved, it's grown, it's acquired organics, which makes foods and other organic, home products. But what is Fab India remains made by the people of India, looking for things that are made in the villages, in the rural areas, and really promoting the ethos of Indian craftsmanship and Indian cottage industry. So that continues to permeate in Fab India. So even after 30, 40 years of John Bissell's death, Fab India retains that. And the way Fab India is written, you know, the logo, which is basically Fab India's name, has not changed. So you can see how the spirit of the company, the ethics of that company continue well beyond. Then explicitly doing business ethically to counter temptation. See, what happens is, okay, let's take another business. Kingfisher Airlines, let's take a look at it. I loved Vijay Mallya's ads when they first came out. I don't know if you remember the sexy girls in red outfits. And I'm like, this is India? My God. I mean, I just come back from America at the time. So for me, this was like, whoa, where am I? Right? But the point is that he was pushing the envelope. He was trying to do things like Richard Branson, who was pushing Virgin Atlantic at that time. I don't know if you people know the story of Richard Branson, who was like the Vijay Mallya of the UK. And it was really trying the same business strategies, but somehow Mallya went in a direction from which he could not return. And it's a tragedy, because actually he was an amazing guy. I mean, his brain and his business strategy was really an amazing thing. But look how that story went. Look at where Richard Branson is and look at where Vijay Mallya is. See, he's in the news. He's probably one of the best known of the Indian entrepreneurs. But is this the way you want to be remembered? Sorry, no, you know. And it's a tragedy because Kingfisher was a strong brand. I mean, it's a very, very tragic story, that one. But it leaves a lot of answers. I mean, a lot of questions for you to ask yourselves, which is a route you want to take as an entrepreneur. Now, how can you make sure that you are very focused on ethics? This is something that maybe you are taught in school. I don't know. I don't know whether chemistry or English per se will teach it as a straight out thing. But, you know, every time you write an essay, you know, or you write an answer to a question paper, there's usually, you know, this is a question and you think through how you're going to write this essay. There is a start paragraph, there's a middle paragraph, and then there's a conclusion, correct? Similarly, a business plan needs to set out the broad vision of the business that you're going to start. So what is the business I want to do? What exactly am I going to be doing with this business? Is it going to be a product? Am I making a soap? Am I making lemonade? Or am I going to be serving people? Am I going to be, you know, providing a service? Or is it going to be, you know, an app? An app is also a product, by the way. So you have to think through your product. You have to think through what it's going to take you to produce this product or service, how you are going to design or develop it, how you're going to sell it, and how you're going to continue to sell it, and most importantly, where you're going to find the money to cover the expense of the research, the development, the marketing, the operations, and all of this. So you have to have a very, very clear budget. So unless you have business plans, mission statements, you are not going to be able to strategically start up a business. So what's so ethical about a business plan? Because throughout the business plan, you will have the honesty, the transparency, and the clarity. And if you stick with this honesty and transparency, you will stick to ethics. So business plan is a very, very clear tool for how you can actually make your business an ethical business. The plan is basically your guideline or your map. Next slide, please. Since we're all women, I want to just divert our attention to, is it really all that different for women? You know what? At this stage, I don't think many of us are married in this group, right? All of you are students. At this stage, you're on an even path. You're a student. You happen to have a different biology, but you have access to education. You have access to all of the instruments of learning that your colleagues who are boys have next door. The only thing that is missing from you is that you may not have the mobility, the freedom, and there's always this concern that parents have that something bad will happen to you because you're a girl. Now, these are all cultural and social limitations, but they are not necessarily genetic, biological, or even real limitations. These are perceived limitations. So if you can figure out a way to prove to your friends and family that you're willing and able to overcome these social, cultural constraints, then you can actually level the playing field. A lot of it, and I'm sure we can debate on it, and I look forward to a debate at St. Teresa's on this issue. Is it really that much harder for women? I'm not going to deny it. It was very hard for me. I mean, I used to be, I mean, my dining table was a battlefield every day. My poor mother, I really feel sorry for her. I mean, short of throwing things at each other on the dining table, it used to be war with my dad all the time. But the fact is, if I negotiated and if I could answer his questions about risk, safety, and finance, the man was generally quite supportive. Risk, safety, finance, three things. If I could answer those three questions logically, unemotionally, no screaming, no crying, but unemotionally, logically, and straightforwardly, I could actually persuade him. It may not be the same in every household. I'm not saying everybody is like my dad, but he was not easy. He was not easy, and I had to do a lot of work to persuade him. But I had to learn the art of negotiation, persuasion, and most importantly, homework, evidence, facts, evidence, all the time. So as a business person, you really have to, get your homework done. You can't just go out there and expect people to buy your brilliant idea and say, oh, wow, very innovative, I'll support you. No. Whether you're girl or boy, it's the same. If you don't do something logical and if you don't do something which is persuasive and convincing, I don't think it's a girl-boy issue. Because the risks and the financial implications are really severe. Okay. But as you go out, now I have a friend who's actually in the fisheries business. Okay. She's one of the rare women. Lizzie is one of the rare women who is actually competing with all the other fishermen in the marketplace. So I'm really impressed to see this woman going out there every morning, 4 o'clock. She's there when the boats come back from the ocean. She has to be there for the auction for the fish. She's standing, she's shorter than everybody else. So she stands on these big boxes and starts screaming out these figures, to buy the loads. And you can see that she's so fragile. She's so pretty. She's so petite. So why is it that Lizzie is able to survive in this huge sea of sharks as this little minnow? You know why? Lizzie has a respect of the fishermen because she knows her fish, she knows the product, she's always giving them their money on time. When they have a problem, when their mother is sick, when their child is needing money for education, the school fees, or if the wife has a surgery, Lizzie's there with the support. She listens to their problems, she responds to them, she treats them like human beings. So because of the respect that she garners from the people she's working with, it really doesn't matter whether all the other traders and buyers are bigger and louder and more heavier and have mustaches and beards and gundas and everything else in between. Because on the real ethics and on the humanity, Lizzie wins. She takes care of her people. And because her staff also talk about how she is as an employer, even the people who don't know her get to know her very quickly and say, ee aala sheriya, nalla aala. Paisa taru. At the right time, they'll pay me. She won't keep me, dwindling or nala taram, matanala taram. See, in the business, money now is better than money tomorrow. And you have to keep your promises. Relationships are very, very important. So while I agree that it is different for women and it is often difficult for women, I prefer to choose the word different rather than more difficult for women. Because the more we say difficult for women, women are getting discouraged from going into business. Women are being told, don't do business, it's not the right thing for women. It's risky, it's dangerous, you have to go and work with dirty men, corrupt men. Look, the world is made up of men and women. So it's different for us. Of course, it's different for different people. Let's try to figure out how we can find our way through it. So I really want to make very clear that, let's not get caught up with this man-woman thing. Let's be very honest about where the differences are and strive to go beyond it. One of the most important things, and I want you to go to the right side of that slide. As you get older, right now things are a bit different. But for married women with children, mother-in-laws, father-in-laws, mothers and fathers, siblings, staff, etc., we have too much on our plate. So for a woman entrepreneur, you will find that becoming very large requires a lot of sacrifice and compromise. So you will see that a lot of entrepreneurs choose not to get married. Women entrepreneurs choose not to get married because they don't want to overload their plate. Here I want to say there is no one way. I think we women, like men, should aim to get it all. What we need to do better is we need to know our limits. We need to know where our happiness lies. And if we choose our family over the size of our business, it doesn't mean no business. It's the size of the business. So you will see a lot of women entrepreneurs don't grow their businesses beyond a certain point, but they're happy with it. Leave it that way. Leave it that way. Success and happiness have very little to do with size. As long as that size is sustainable, maintain it. But it should not be at the expense of your joy and your happiness, your peace of mind, and the relationships you have with your family, especially your children. Then, good time management. Ladies, this is the one thing I learned in America. Time management. Women have an extremely strong resource because we are always multitasking. We are very efficient time managers. Hone in on this skill. The boys are not so good at it. Okay? So hone in on those skills. That's your secret weapon. the thing that I said about Lizzie, that humanity, that sweetness, that ability to see the humanity in another person, the soft side. Don't consider your soft side weak. Your soft side is your secret weapon. Your time management is your secret weapon. So women, be very, very proud of these skills that you have, because these two things, time management and the softness, the HR side of you, are very, very important. And most importantly, it's okay to be tough. Just because you're a woman, you don't have to be sweet all the time. If you have to say, listen, I'm not giving you 10 rupees, it's 5 rupees, take it or leave it. അയ്യോ 10 ആണോ 8 മതിയാവോ 9 ശരി ഞാൻ 9 തരാം. When you know it's 5 and everybody else is giving 5, why are you giving that man 8? He's just fleecing you. So be tough when the situation demands it. Don't be ashamed to be tough when the situation demands it. Don't be tough to impress them that you're a woman who is tough. Don't be tough to impress. Be tough when it matters. This is very important. Next. I'm not going to go through all the labor laws. I actually prepared this slide for a bunch of legal students, so don't get overwhelmed by it. You can read on it later. But labor laws are very important, because initially when you're just your own employee, you don't have to worry too much about labor laws. But if you decide that you're going to hire people, you had better be clear on what the labor laws are, especially on wages, on whether you're going to be giving them their holidays, whether you're going to give them bonuses, etc. All of this matters particularly once you decide to register yourself, and we'll go to the next slide. So I'm jumping ahead of myself, but labor and labor laws are very important. The second important point is intellectual property. This is less important when you're making lemonade, okay? Unless there's some amazing fragrance that your grandma told you and that's your secret weapon. But this particularly applies to IT sector and the chemists. If you discover an amazing formula, that's intellectual property. Do you understand? So make sure that if you do have a secret formula or a secret ingredient or whatever it is, that it is protected by patents. You know what a patent law is? You actually get a certification that authorizes you that this is your product, your property, nobody else can use it. So patent law is very important to understand to protect your intellectual property. Aha, this is very important. Women are terribly weak at this. We basically vakail, we promise each other, I promise I'll do this. There's no paper, there's nothing written. Be very, whatever you do must be documented, and you need to have contracts with your employees, contracts with your service providers. Paper, that's the only way you can protect yourself and protect your people. See, sometimes the paper doesn't just protect you and your company. The paper also protects your people. So be very, very good at contracts. And you have to be very, very fair and ethical. See, to know what is the right price to pay, what is the right number of days to give for leave, whether or not you should give an employee maternity leave, okay? All this, it's written down. The laws are very clear. You don't have to invent the wheel. All this is available on the websites. The point is that you need to be aware of that. You need to educate yourself, and you need to implement that. Now, you don't have to do it alone. That is why many of your friends next door in law college are getting law degrees. So most companies, most entrepreneurs will have a lawyer on retainer. Even I have a lawyer on retainer. That lawyer helps me when I am in a contractual conflict. Say, for instance, I work for 45 days and I'm billing for 45 days of consulting service. But my employer says, no, you worked only for 38 days. The other days are actually Sundays and Saturdays. But then it should say on the contract that I should not work on weekends. They told me that this is the work I have to do. They told me that I can be paid as many as 60 days. I'm billing for 45 days, well within the 60 days. But now suddenly they come back and say you should not have billed on Saturdays and Sundays. Well, if it said on the contract that you cannot work on Saturdays and Sundays, I would not have billed. I would have said Mondays and Wednesdays. What is the big deal? But I was honest and I put it on the calendar. Now they don't want to pay me for those days and they're making a lot of noise. So my lawyer had to fight it out for me and found a little clause that said no specifications on weekends, meaning that I can work whenever I work as long as I can deliver the goods and I work for 45 days. You understand? So contract resolution, contract negotiations are very, very important. Next, closing down the company. We won't get into this. Let's be very positive. We want to start the company, but there are also certain norms to how you close down a company. And as I told you, sometimes you close down a company because you're on a high end. Your company has done very well. You're going to sell it and you're going to close down the company because the company now belongs to somebody else. The product belongs to somebody else. And if you've sold it, you don't have to close it. But if you've sold the product name and the workshop or the factory has to be closed down, there are certain procedures to it. So there are laws that abide by it. In summary, I just want to go through some of the obvious basic steps. There's incorporation. So say for instance, the lemonade stand is very successful and now you want to call it Niveda Lemonade. Okay? You have to incorporate it. You have a name for the company and you have to register it, and there are several places you can register. So if it's a lemonade business, you have to go to the Food and Drug Administration, the Ministry of Food. You will not go to the Ministry of Textiles and register because it's not a textile product. So you have to know which ministry and which registrar of companies you are going to go to in order to register this particular business. There will be usually a memorandum of association. Most of you know that even when you form a club, there is a memorandum of understanding and articles of association that basically gives you the rules and guidelines that you have to adhere to. This is all given to you by the government. You do not have to design it and produce it yourself. Okay? Then you have to have capital subscription. This is also if somebody puts money into it. At this stage in your life, you do not have to worry about these things. Most startups at this stage, especially by women, are usually started up with your savings or your parents or your spouses or your siblings or your friends invest. But I have friends who have started with real investment. But that's also a product or a service that they have innovated for several years on the sidelines before they got into the big game. So it's not like overnight you have set up the business. For almost 10 years, you remember Apple and our dear friend Steve Jobs, how long he's had in his friend's garage. So there are a lot of businesses which actually spend a lot of time in garages before they actually get to the level of incorporation and capital subscription. But I'm putting these words out there because it's important for you to know the jargon. Because if you are interested in entrepreneurship, this jargon is important for you to at least start thinking. Don't worry if you can't remember it tomorrow, but at least it will jostle your memory when you finally get into that game. You have to worry about your business structure. Here again, are you going to be a sole proprietor? Are you going to be in it alone? Are you going to be in a partnership? Is it going to be a limited company, private company? All this depends after you think through your business. And that's where you have to bring in your friend, the lawyer, who will advise you on which is the best structure that you need. At this stage, I don't want to go too far into it. You do need licenses. Next slide. You do need to know about taxes and accounting laws. Okay? So there is a lot of law that you need to know, but you don't need to know it on your own. That's why your law friends will help. So almost all startups must consult with a lawyer. So web research and all of that is very good. But for me, I have always found it much better to consult with a lawyer. There's a reason why. The law differs from Kerala to Tamil Nadu, from Tamil Nadu to Karnataka. So even for the same industry, whether it's pharmaceuticals or food, different states have different laws. So which is why you need to have legal experts and advisors to guide you through it. There's one thing where you don't need a lawyer. That's the ethics part. That's your conscience. Your own conscience is what will guide you about being a a good business person. Okay, I want to use this slide very, very quickly. Can we just jump to the, I want to wrap up very quickly on ethical issues in business. See, you have to be ethical in your numbers. You can't lie with numbers. If you say you're going to give somebody a salary of X, it cannot be Y. It has to be X. Lot of people give money on the top and then there's something else that goes under the table. That's unethical. Right? Then health and safety in the workplace. You can't say that you are worried about the safety of your people and not provide them with gloves, with eyeglasses, with protective headgear. Okay? You can't make them work in places infested in rats and cockroaches. There's some fundamentals, some basics. Yesterday I was reading about how some restaurant was making samosas in the toilet. I cannot imagine how such a business could even survive in today's world with so much, social media. But I guess that's how they were found out. Then, technology and private practices. You have to be very, very clear on the technology that you buy. My husband runs an architectural practice. We have to buy applications and software. There's a lot of fake applications and software, and a lot of companies don't want to pay the full price. So they buy it at half price, but it's fake. And then when you get found out, the penalty is very high. The point is that you have to follow the law on these things, and that's where the ethics are. And last but not the least, very important. I think many of you already know what is POSH, Prevention of Sexual Harassment in the Workplace, POSH. You have to make sure, you're women, and you know how tough it is out there in the world, and how tough it is out there for weaker and marginalized people, children, poor people, elderly. The weak and the underprivileged and the vulnerable are constantly attacked, harassed, and bothered. We must make sure that our business always ensures a very safe workplace where harassment and discrimination is completely not tolerated. And since you cannot control everybody, there may be instances of discrimination or harassment. Make sure that you have the rules and regulations in place so that the wrongdoers are caught and punished. But most importantly, see, we women never speak up. Our processes, our HR policies, they must be ethical in that whether or not a person is afraid to talk to her mother, her husband, her friend, that person should feel completely comfortable walking into the office, going to the HR department and telling, say for instance, it's Kripa, something terrible happened to me. Do you mind if I spend some time telling you about it? So there must be somebody who is there who will make the person feel comfortable, listen to that person and get to the bottom of things and find resolution, seek justice, and basically what I'm saying is make sure the ethical loop in your business is complete. So sexual harassment and workplace safety policies are very, very important. And I think we as women entrepreneurs can make the world a much better place by ensuring that we adhere to those kinds of principles. So when I said that are women different? Yes, because we care about these things. And our businesses will always underscore fairness, justice, equality, and non-discrimination. So that's why I am such a strong promoter of women in business. Because I feel that our ethics and our values are so very sound and grounded. And we bring a beautiful layer of integrity and ethics into the workplace, into the business space. And as entrepreneurs, we can do a lot more. I want to stop here because I think we have, done quite a bit. And this is not an easy topic to teach over a 1 hour period, but I think I've laid out some of the fundamentals. I want to underscore the ethics. I want to underscore the need for legal counsel. I want to underscore the importance of having a vision, a dream, but a business plan, especially with a budget and a financing strategy to match it. And most importantly, make mistakes, you learn from them. That's the beauty of a startup. A startup is meant to make mistakes, and it's mistakes that actually will develop and hone your design so that you actually build a great business over time. And see, you may have an idea which you don't make it a business. Somebody else may take your idea and make it a business, but the idea was always yours. So don't feel bad if you don't become a businesswoman. Just say that you're an ideas person, and even that makes you feel good. So I congratulate each and every one of you for considering yourself an entrepreneur in the making. Thank you again, Centuries. Thank you, all of you, the organizers. And a big, big thank you to Kripa for looping me into this. I had a great time.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a really informative session. There were a lot of new and practical information that we hadn't heard before. And I'm pretty sure that everyone...
So I don't see any questions in the chat box. Do I see any questions? Kripa, any questions or comments?
I lost my... audience now has a chance to clear their doubts with the resource person if they have any. Either you can put it in the chat box or you can unmute and speak. I will wait for 1 minute.
Anything, even a comment, it doesn't have to be a question. Was it boring?
No,
Business can be boring. Was there something that you wanted to know? Is there anybody, because you see, this being a quick one, we didn't do learning objectives. Normally when I do these sessions, I go through and ask people to tell me what they want to learn from the session. I didn't get a chance. So is there somebody who wants to ask something that was not covered? A question they don't have? I mean, a question that was not covered in my talk? Anyone can ask.
Maybe if they have doubts later on, I can send it to you or give them your contact.
One thing is, for those of you who are interested, Kerala is very, very strong now on startups for women. There's something called the Startup in Kerala scheme, okay, Startup India scheme, and they're offering a lot of support. So please look for the Startup India scheme on the website, and maybe some of you can, fulfill your dreams by starting a startup with Government of Kerala support. So, so there's a lot of resources out there. So those of you who have ideas, please feel free. I'm happy to help you out. A lot of Malayali women are starting up businesses here and in Bangalore and in Bombay. So, you will find a lot of peer support. A lot of women out there who are starting businesses. And one more thing, there is an organization called the Women Entrepreneurs Network, WEN, WEN. They do a lot of conferences here in Kerala. So those of you who are interested in entrepreneurship, look out for WEN. WEN. Lot of Malayali women like you who started off like you in St. Teresa's, in Law College, and now are running thriving businesses.
Okay, so seems like there are no queries, so we'll be moving on.
Okay.
I invite Minaza Mehek PM, IIC Student Coordinator for Chemistry Department, to deliver the vote of thanks.
A very good evening to one and all. On behalf of the Department of Chemistry and Center for Research and the Department of English and Center for Research, in association with the Institution Innovation Council and Theresian IEDC of St. Teresa's College, I feel privileged to propose a vote of thanks. First and foremost, I extend my sincere thanks to the Almighty God for making today's event a resounding success. With His blessings and grace, we were able to make this event happen. Next, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the esteemed resource person, Neena Nair, who spared her precious time for us to grace this occasion and to enlighten all of us on how to plan for startup and legal and ethical steps. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would take this opportunity to express my deep regards to our HODs of Chemistry Department and English Department, Dr. Jayati Varki ma'am and Dr. Preeti Kumar ma'am, for being a backbone and the guiding force for every new step forward. I would specially thank the faculty coordinators, Dr. Nisha TP ma'am of Chemistry Department and Niveda Sebastian ma'am of English Department for their immense help and support, without which this event won't be possible. Thank you, dear teachers. I would also like to thank all the other teachers and students for their help. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants here for being with us. I hope all of you have taken home something useful from today's webinar. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Munna sir. With that, we have reached the end of today's webinar. Before winding up the session, I would like to inform everyone that we will be circulating a feedback form through email. Please take your time and fill in the form. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening ahead.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for your message in the chat box. Thanks all of you. It was a great experience. I wish I could be with you in person, hopefully someday. But if any of you is starting up something, I wish you all the best.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was wonderful hearing you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. It's the energy that I'm getting from all of you. So, thrills. Thanks, Kripa.
Thank you, ma'am.
See you around. Maybe something on poetry next time, Niveda?
Yes, ma'am. Sure. Hope to meet in person.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye, Kripa. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, ma'am. Kripa.
Yes.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
നന്നായി ചെയ്തു MC. അയ്യോ, you did a great job.
Thank you. ഇനി ലീവ് ചെയ്യാനല്ലേ?
കഴിഞ്ഞല്ലോ അല്ലേടാ, വേറെ ഇല്ലല്ലോ. അപ്പൊ മറ്റേ റിപ്പോർട്ട്